I'm Eva O, and this is the Teakink Podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Teakink Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for my outfit.
You look so good in it.
Thank you.
Thank you for looking good in it.
This is Vex, and I am wearing 4 chambers by Vex.
The outfit that I get hounded most to reissue, but I'm not sure that I was cut out to be a fashion designer. They don't tell you when you make porn, everyone is so nice to you. Uh-huh. You know, everyone emails you saying, oh, thank you so much. You changed my life. When you make merchandise, people will order and then send you a message a day later being like, it hasn't arrived. Where is my outfit? So I was actually genuinely almost like, I need to return to making porn.
Yeah, maybe it's another business.
Yeah. The thing is, loads of hot people bought it and loads of hot people wear it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to keep it somewhat exclusive in the sense of like, you don't want to go somewhere and see like 4 people wearing it. You've got to have a certain amount of like rarity in it.
Well, we go places where there might be 4 people wearing it.
Well, that's because you go places where there are hot people.
So hot people in places, hot people in porn, hot people on fashion. Is that the point of 4 chambers?
The point of 4 chambers is hot people. What's interesting is that I feel like before I started doing this, I didn't actually like hotness didn't really play into it massively in that I was kind of interested in exploring sex, but less maybe about kind of looking polished and massively kind of aesthetic or adhering to kind of particularly like normative standards of hotness. And I was just interested in exploring kind of like the messiness of sex. And honestly, I feel like 10 years in kind of the digital promotion of it, I almost got sidelined into being a hot girl. And I never actually cared that much about being a hot girl. I always wanted to be like a weird girl or like creative or interesting or kind of and actually the more time I kind of spend, I actually kind of think sometimes just pure hotness is kind of boring. Actually maybe just pure kind of aesthetic can be a little boring.
It's incredibly boring. I think hotness for me delineates like kind of attraction, as opposed to just an aesthetic, and that takes a lot more.
Because hot. Sometimes someone can be very beautiful without being hot, and sometimes somebody can be not very beautiful but be incredibly hot. And I think there's something maybe more interesting in that than just having something that's sort of super polished. So the further I get, the more I kind of want to step away from just thinking about both like myself and maybe the films that I make in terms of polish and more about mess. And not that I've ever shied away from that before in my life.
No.
But
well, you're talking to the wrong crew if you don't want to glorify mess. I know that my space is
I know it's such a, I was
clean,
like, it's such, but
the contents of my mind.
Messy. Do you have, there must be something interesting in having like a very clean space and then messing it up, or like having a clean space and then almost taking somebody who's very put together and then like breaking them down.
Well, where did it all come from? I think so this is about you or me.
Hey,
this is about us. It's about us.
It's about us.
Yeah. But I think for me, I don't know if I even think about it as mess within the moment. You know, I think I see life and a person as a whole. And I think that I'm very comfortable reaching into the corners, which is why I bother doing the job that I do, because it allows you that consensual space to do that. And I don't see it as mess. I see it as truth. Yeah. And I like truth. It makes me feel more comfortable. I can just be with somebody. I think because I'm not very good at social norms. And so just breaking it down is a faster way for me to feel vulnerable and connected and actually socially cohesive. And so I enjoy what people call mess, but I call reality, I guess.
I love that.
Yeah. And so hotness is that, just the holistic sense of somebody. And if I look at a flat, beautiful surface and it hasn't understood the mess, the intricacies of their being, I would probably forget it fairly immediately.
Yeah, I think something can be instantly beautiful but quite forgettable. But when something has that like truth to it, I think that's where it becomes really timeless. I feel the same in that I think for me, what is interesting in sex, I think someone asked me a question recently saying, you know, something like, what do I search for when I'm watching porn, or what kind of things am I into? And I was thinking about it, and it kind of honestly boils down to anything that strips away the kind of polite public facing mask that we show to other people, and you get to look behind that. So anyone doing something that they know they shouldn't do, convincing somebody to kind of get to that primal state where you're not concerned with what's on the outside. You're really seeing somebody's reality or seeing somebody's truth.
Is there anything that you're concerned in hiding still?
Oh, yes. It's interesting.
Are we going to see it in the next Four Chambers film?
Well, maybe, actually. That's a very astute observation. Yeah, there's a lot that I think I hide. I think that I feel very comfortable creating a character or creating a performance, and that I've really honed that. You know, this work that I've been doing has really, it's really rewarded that. And honestly, the further I go into it, the more I, for myself, need to allow myself to integrate the character and the person. And I'm very comfortable being naked, being fucked, you know, in a room full of people with them watching me. But I think emotionally, I find it difficult to kind of, you know, connect maybe with my body in a really present way. I think, honestly, I've loved sex work. It's taught me so much about myself, so much about the kind of people I'm attracted to, the kind of things that I love to do. It's expanded my sexual imagination. But I think what making porn has done has in some ways incentivized sexual performance over sexual embodiment. And I think I'm a very good sexual performer. I hope so after 10 years. But I think I still have some way to go on like embodying my sexuality for myself. And in the last couple of years, I had a little mantra, which was like, sex for work, not for fun. Oh wait, sex for fun, not for work. I mean, that was my mantra before. We're still working on that. And I think, you know, like trying to bring those two together.
I find that very difficult when I have been rewarded for delivering, not only in escorting or in dom work or in front of the camera, but in life, you know, like when people pedestal you or interact with you and you're seeing yourself through their eyes, and how it's hard to find that space to just kind of sink into something. I don't know whether that really exists.
Do you find it
Sorry to crush your mantra.
Hey, look, we're all on this. We're all working it out together. It's hard, I think, for some people, you know, even like going to events or when there's an amount of you that is somebody who is recognized as the character, you're like, it's hard to let go of that. You know, it's hard to let go of how other people are seeing you because you're not anonymous. You know, people have an idea about you when they meet you and they project what they want onto that, which can sometimes mean it's hard. Sometimes I'm
like, fun.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun to, because I think actually like part of the attraction is that it allows you to play like this version of yourself, which can be like incredibly seductive. And I love playing that, and it is a part of myself. But what it does sometimes, I think, is sink into it's a really good way to describe it. It sort of stops me feeling like I can sink into myself when you're only projecting outward.
A friend of mine, Laura, I did an episode with her also, and actually we touched on this a little bit. I don't know how we ended up getting there, but it was something about how maybe it's only in solo spaces, the spaces of masturbation, that maybe it's revealed like what that might look like. And I can't remember what Laura's response was now. Like how I'm just like in my own head, which is good. So what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But mine was kind of like a rage through infinity. Was kind of my. That
sounds great.
Yeah, I think is what I am at a base level, maybe. Okay. Yeah. Have you identified in the last couple of years a little bit more what that might look like for you? I think probably it also shifts and changes too, right? So versus like the internal, you forget that suddenly you're being perceived, that sexual you versus the sexual character that's been so well developed. What's the difference? Do you have a feeling of what that difference might be?
Honestly, it's a relatively simple answer, but I started smoking weed. And there's something about being high that it almost sends all of those signals to something very physical rather than something very cerebral. And it feels like when you experience touch or you're experiencing pleasure, for me, not good for conversation. I'm like, don't talk to me. I can't, it's not something I could imagine doing it massively in a social situation, but there's something about like high sex that makes me feel more able to connect with actually experiencing the sensation of touch rather than thinking about what I'm going to do next or what's going to happen. My angles, yeah, absolutely not. Because for me, the hottest thing in sex is when I can see somebody forgetting their angles, when I can see somebody who's quite uptight, kind of relaxing into it, and I want to be able to give that to people that I'm fucking as well.
Unfortunately, I know how to look like that also.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's a curse.
Oh no, this is it. Well, the problem is that I think again the incentive. Once you've incentivized faking an orgasm, it's kind of.
It's not even a fake orgasm. Like I realize that I can turn on the surrender in my body and in my face also.
And do you feel like when you turn it on, is there a distance there between you actually experiencing that, or does it help you get to that space?
I think I'm experiencing it, but I don't feel overcome by it. And when I session, especially in top or dom spaces with people, I see a lot of them not being able to make that choice. They're just there, and which also makes it harder to come out of, right? Which is why I have to take it a little bit easy in terms of who I'm going to session with and aftercare, etc. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever really been in a space of total surrender. Have you?
I would like to say yes, but I think the answer is probably not entirely. I think I experienced glimpses of it, maybe moments of it. And I think it's something that I aim for, or at least I would like to be able to give myself at some point. But I think with all things, it's sometimes maybe easy to be kind of a little self-critical. You always think about the ways in which you're not achieving these things. It's maybe something that I'm kind of working towards, maybe knowing that complete abandonment isn't necessarily going to be possible. It's just nice to kind of take steps towards that, or trying to facilitate more openness in the kind of sex that I'm having. And I think that will essentially, for me, I in the last couple of years, I've been feeling quite burnt out with making films, with being creative. It felt very much like I ran at it full force and I was producing so much, and it just felt like I was outputting without actually really taking the time to kind of feed my own sexuality or feed my own sense of self. It felt like a race to put out as much as possible. And I could feel it depleting my imagination and my creativity in terms of sex, because sex for me is so expansive. And I felt like I needed to give myself some time to recoup some of what I'd put out.
How have you done that? Have you slowed down?
Slowing down, allowing.
I didn't look like it, but okay. I was just at a few parties that you held, and then screenings, and then talks.
Well, it's interesting because actually, I don't think especially not recently, I've not slowed down with doing events. In fact, I've done more of that because actually more and more I felt the need to be in physical space with people. I really wanted to take something. I came from a background in like making physical artwork, and I love the kind of physicality of both like material objects, but also like actually being with people. Part of the reason why I love shooting so much and why I love shooting sex so much is because it gives you this opportunity to have this incredibly vulnerable experience with somebody, and it bonds you in a way that you can't understand if you haven't had that experience. And I love that, but I realized that the majority of the work that I was doing, because we do everything in-house, is sitting in front of a computer, and I wanted to kind of take it out there in the world. I wanted to be with people, and I wanted to, experience that in front of somebody instead of just sitting behind a screen.
How's it feeling?
It's feeling good. I have really enjoyed kind of expanding maybe what it is that we do. I've enjoyed taking a bit of time just for myself and trying to kind of perfect things maybe, rather than just pushing stuff out, allowing myself to feel really good about it instead of going, oh, we really need to get this film out, we really need to shoot something else. I think a big part of what killed it for me was kind of pushing through I don't know if you ever have this, but sometimes when you realize that your body is telling you to stop, whereas your mind is going, that's fine, like, we're going to keep working, we're going to keep doing, we need to keep doing this. But there's something kind of internal that's trying to tell you need to slow down and you need to stop.
Yeah, I don't listen to it.
You're like,
my mind's like, we're cool. This is exciting.
That's good. Have there been times in your life when you felt burnt out with?
Fairly, obviously.
Wow, would you?
What happened?
What did you do to fix it? Help me.
So do not listen to me. I ended up living with my parents for a year.
Oh, wow.
But also going back to school and doing like 6 courses. So it's like my kind of burnout is...
It's just get burnt out doing something else.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's good. It's not bad advice, honestly.
Really? Distract yourself, do something different. I ended up working like an internship at a sex worker organization, which brought me back to the work anyway. So it was a pretty good year out. Lots of walks in nature, but still my mind doesn't really stop. So even if I'm sitting on my ass, it needs to be doing something.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But aside from that, I nap.
Oh,
I try to nap.
Love to nap.
Yeah.
I hate to relax though. I can't relax. I'm the same as you, where I have to be doing something. I find it really hard to have unstructured time. I like to have a plan.
Yeah.
And I want to know what time I need to be somewhere. I want to know. And for me, that is actually kind of relaxing. I actually find unregulated time stressful.
I mean, you can also schedule that stuff, just like nap diary entry. I mean, if that's what's going to help you. Yeah. Or meditation was very useful for me. So I kind of drop into that. when I can, although maybe I've been thinking about restarting that practice, actually.
I would love to learn to meditate. And I think I would suck at it, but I think it would be very useful.
There's some incredible apps these days that you don't have to go I went really extreme. I like dropped into a 12-day silent retreat and then ended up doing 3 hours every day for 5 years and disappearing for 30 days, total silence sometimes. You do not need to do that.
Okay. I mean,
it's 3 minutes on the apps these days. They're really good too. Yeah. I would. I'll send you a link after this.
My friend actually has something on her phone, which is if she wants to open Instagram, she has to meditate for 30 seconds before she can open Instagram.
I think everybody probably needs that.
Yeah, it's not the best.
It wouldn't help Instagram probably, but they probably should implement that.
Yes.
The state of mind is necessary for engaging with all of this shit.
I do think that, honestly, coming out of the other side of it, I really feel like maybe, so I'm 34 and I kind of feel like my generation is the first generation to really almost grow up entirely with the internet. So I kind of remember my dad getting a computer and going on the internet for the first time.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I think when he got the computer, I was maybe 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. But I know that by 11 or 12, maybe even younger than that actually then. Yeah, but either like I was going online by 10, 11, 12.
Mm-hmm. Chatrooms.
Mm-hmm. Habbo Hotel was a huge sexual awakening for me. I say a sexual awakening, just my first experience of probably, me as a 12-year-old pretending to be 19, speaking to a 40-year-old also pretending to be 19, which is probably fine. I just remember being completely unable to say anything and having somebody just typing kind of like dirty stuff to me, and me and my friends sitting there being like, and just going, which was apparently enough.
Yeah. What was the site?
Do you know? Oh, this was so formative. It's called Habbo Hotel.
Okay.
And what it was little animated people. You could make a little avatar, completely anonymous, and they had different rooms that you could visit, and it was live, so other people, the other little avatars were other real people. And it's apparently still going today.
Oh, I'm going to look it up.
I mean, sure. But you couldn't swear, and it would change a swear word to the word bobba, like BOBBA. But this was
the bubble tea.
Like the bubble tea, which I don't even know if it was invented then. But I was obsessed with it, and because me and my friend, we were just getting into like goth music, and we wanted to be weird, and we were from like rural Leicester, which basically meant that the internet became this just absolute portal into, good word, just into learning about new things, experiencing new things.
It has possibility.
It was complete unbridled possibility.
What was one of the first few things that you remember thinking, I didn't understand that was possible?
Do you have a good one of those? I'm trying to think.
The thing is, I guess I've always been very confused and overstimulated, but in a good way. Because my family, they speak a lot of different languages. We all look very different, in terms of like even just color. And we lived in a lot of different places, so it's like it's always been chaos. Yeah,
that sounds great.
I loved it, but it's like I'm not really necessarily surprised. I'm just like, another weird thing.
Let's go.
Yeah, which can get you in total trouble.
Yeah. Or it can get other people in total trouble as well, which is...
But I've survived.
Yeah. I mean, thrived, I would say.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm still discovering these things all the time. Like, sure, maybe things are smaller in some ways in parts of this country, but I'm here because I'm freer in many ways, because of the way that society is structured, because of the way your legal system is, which still sucks in a lot of ways, but I'm protected more here. So I don't know. I think there's always something to be gained, and there's never an end to seeing something as new or challenging or worth questioning.
Yeah.
But when you're so small and your world is like here and you're craving this weirdness, I guess even just hearing something that you don't know how to respond to at quite a safe distance.
This is it. I think honestly, people talk a lot of shit about the internet in terms of like, you know, it's destroying our children. But actually, really, I think it doesn't get enough credit for the ways in which it actually really allows people to experiment and experience things from that kind of slightly physically detached distance. And it's not without risks, but, you know, for a lot of people, it gives you some space to kind of just peek around the door of something, or to see other people doing something, or, you know, get a flavor, get a taste, and work out maybe whether or not it's something that you like, that you want to pursue, without having to kind of put yourself in physical proximity to some stuff that maybe could feel intense or scary. And I know for me, that was a huge part of why I ended up, you know, having the experiences that I had. The site that I was going to say was that, you know, a site I spent a lot of time on as a impressionable teenager was called vampirefreaks.com. And it was just this huge worldwide encyclopedia of like people who were into alternative lifestyles. And that's where I would have seen people wearing latex for the first time. That's where I would have been exposed to, you know, so much of the music that I loved. And I met people, you know, that I was lifelong friends with through that site, that we're still kind of loosely in touch now.
Was it the music that kind of led you towards that culture? I
was just obsessed with, I loved goths. I remember seeing a trad goth for the first time, like somebody with the like spider web sleeves and like white face, and she was wearing like full kind of Victorian dress. And I remember saying to my mum as a child that I wanted to crawl under her skirt and live under her skirt. I just was fascinated by people who seemed to align with darkness in some way. I think I just found it captivating, and from a very young age had in my head that that's how I wanted to be when I grew up. And, you know,
somebody comfortable with life.
Yeah, somebody who was prepared to be weird, somebody who, you know, dressed extravagantly, and, you know, that I as a teenager, just that was what I wanted to do. That was who I wanted to be. And I did it. And then I had a small embarrassing stint as a cybergoth, but that's fine. We all make our mistakes. Don't actually think it's a mistake. I actually
Define
love
cybergoth.
Well, goth is, you know, your traditional goth is like Victoriana and like, you know, spooky, and cybergoth is like the Matrix, futuristic. You know, I had plastic
hair. Do we
hair.
have photos?
Oh, I have photos. If you would like to see photos, I got photos. Feel free. You can put them on the podcast if you like. I'm very happy. I'm honestly so proud because I was 15 and I was such a weird looking 15-year-old, and I loved it because I was so lucky that I was, you know, able to express myself in that way, to have that freedom. And, you know, going to, you know, like Slimelight in London was like my mecca, basically, where I would just, we all flocked there, and I met so many people there, and it just gave me really gave me so much perspective, and made me want to kind of challenge myself, to push myself to do weird things. And I honestly think that's how I ended up making porn, is that, you know, I was completely prepared to be weird, and I was used to people thinking that I was strange, and I was used to people judging me, or kind of
do you feel like that you understood that even before you made the goth choices, or is that something that came when you started externalizing that?
I think I was always interested in, I think honestly for me, as a child, I think one of the things I was really worried about was that I was a boring person. I think I had like this sense of being like, oh, I can't be boring. I have to do things that other people wouldn't do, so that will make me interesting.
What was wrong with boring? Or where did you see boring around you?
Yeah, I think I was, you know, I don't want to talk shit about you know, where I went. There wasn't a lot of you know, I was from a very rural area, and there wasn't a lot of people who, you know, embodied that like weird goth girl that I saw. And I just, I think I just love creativity. I love storytelling. And I think that so much of sex work is about storytelling, like being an amazing storyteller and bringing people into that. I kind of think that was what I wanted to be an actress when I was a little girl. And then I got too goth. I shaved my eyebrows off, and apparently they don't really want to hire
eyebrows for actors.
You need eyebrows. It's a really expressive part of the face, you know. So I kind of, but I think that like desire to perform and to tell stories was very much part of my development.
Your gravitas towards other things. I don't know. It's for me, it's really hard to define like this boredom thing. I think it's more like a stimulation thing, and my brain craves like something new to understand or navigate or just to be engaged by. You know, like how you can't just have idle time. I think this just like a stimulation that my brain also sort of seeks. And so I don't know whether it's like I don't want to be boring, but it's just, I just feel like kind of lost.
You're like let's go.
in the void of sorts. You know, when it's a void. I don't want to get too philosophical, so we're not going to talk about voids right now. But
I'd love to talk about voids. Let's go.
But bring it back to you.
Well, it's interesting because like the void is actually like a huge part of my, I think one of that, you know, with the films that I make, we have different kind of preoccupations, but really like the void for me is like the darkest heart of the thing, the scary thing, the thing that challenges you, the thing that scares you. And, you know, we have a series of films that are called like the Void series. And they're films that we've made kind of trying to explore some of the emotions that feed sex that are not very comfortable, that are not very safe, that feel challenging.
Such as?
So the first film we made is called L'appel de vide, and which literally means the call of the void. And it was basically a film that was a very personal film for the two of us who make Four Chambers, because it was a film about like the complicated feelings that you get like watching somebody that you love fuck somebody else. And it became like almost this kind of poem or like love letter to that sort of sense of something's painful, but something's incredibly hot and you don't know how to kind of square the two. And then after that, we made a film called L'Enfer, which is based on this Henri Clouzot film that was unfinished of the same name, that was about like the madness of jealousy. And that film we kind of made as this, you know, like your jealous imagination run wild. So thinking about like your lover's at a party and, you know, she's fucking somebody else and she's almost like teasing you through the camera and the lights are kind of going crazy. Like she's almost becoming this like surreal, imagined version of herself, like getting fucked by somebody else and mocking you. And then we made a film called Fucked, which is kind of about like that desire to just be in that moment, to not be a person, to just be a whole, to just be filled, to just be doing rather than being, to like almost like get taken out of your mind and into your body. And then most recently we made a film called Cucked, which is sort of an unofficial sequel to Fucked, which started off as a bit of a joke. And I was like, no, I think that's a great title. Let's just keep it. About cuckolding and about the, you know, because so much I think of the way we commonly see cuckolding is so reductive, and so it does such a disservice to how expansive that sort of psychology is. And we collaborated with a performer who wrote some text to kind of go along with the film, like talking about this idea that like, you know, the whole, and, you know, the fact that they're going to fuck tomorrow, that's a whole. Like the fact that they're fucking and you don't even know, that's a whole. The fact that you're not there. And this idea of the whole being almost like captivating. You can't look away. It's like a car crash. You know, you want to see more, but also you're scared of it and you just want to go deeper and deeper. And I think that's so much, the void is so much a huge part of what really drives a lot of sexuality. But sometimes we don't want to look at that. And I imagine in the work that you do, you spend a lot of time getting people to that point. You're like, wow.
Luxuriating inside of the void.
It's warm in here. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you cannot leave.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of the things you've mentioned sound like they are to do with cuckolding mostly.
I just think sexual kind of
like value and jealousy. Do you feel like that's a big focus for?
I think there's just a really interesting
fear.
Yeah, like there's something really interesting about taking something that's scary and almost kind of transmuting it alchemically into something that you find hot as a way to maybe process it better, as a way to try and have some control over it. I think we see that a lot, honestly. And I think, you know, like sexual competition has driven sexual desire for like before we were even like Homo sapiens, probably. And I think to pretend like that isn't, you know, people, even people who don't know they're playing with the idea of cuckolding are really, you know, jealousy in very kind of normative monogamous relationships is like a huge driver in people's kind of sexual imagination. And I just think it's interesting to play with that. It's nice to see what's in the void.
So that was your latest void exploit, the thing that, do you feel that you have some fear? We were talking about hiding from things. Do you feel like there's things around that you were hiding from?
Well, I'm quite happy for other people to get in the void. I'm not going to do that. I think I just really like to I think actually maybe that's more of a stock answer in that I think sometimes getting to explore that stuff allows you to explore it for yourself.
You mean as artistically?
Yeah, like almost, you know, for me, making these films has just completely revolutionized my own idea about my sexuality. You know, what I find attractive, what I think is hot, the kind of sex that I want to have, and really what I value in both, like not only sex really in my life. And I think, you know, I kind of consider each of these films to almost be like an essay, like a mediation, or often the best ones I think are kind of an essay of me taking an idea and exploring it and distilling it into something. But it expands my own understanding of it immeasurably, which is why it's been, you know, that I keep doing it, because it still feels like there's so much fertile ground to be explored, so much void left to get into.
You're very far in your explorations away from your first chat rooms.
Yes, this is very true.
And it doesn't sound like it's stopping.
No.
No,
and I don't want, I feel so lucky because I think it's such captivating work. And it's very easy when I am feeling burnt out to kind of, you know, I don't think it matters how interesting your job is, how creative it is, how much you love to do it, you know, how appreciated it is by other people. If you've done the same kind of thing again and again for any period of time, it's easy to kind of only see the ways in which it's maybe draining or unsatisfying. And sometimes it's hard to remember the reasons why it feels good. And I think I've definitely had moments for that. But honestly, when I'm on set, there's this kind of, magic that comes out of like filming people fucking that, you know, I still think there's so much more to do. But it's amazing because the really, it's changed so much in the years that I've been doing it. It feels like there are so many more people doing sex work or some kind of sex work. But really, it feels less and less people are actually making pornography in the kind of old-fashioned sense of we are going to shoot a scene. There's lots of people doing things like OnlyFans, which feels more kind of a combination of being a cam girl, and so it becomes kind of clips, or it becomes content. And I think I just grew up in an era where storytelling, yeah, a bit more storytelling. And I think OnlyFans is absolutely storytelling. You're creating a character and you're kind of, but that there's
not really a beginning and an end.
There's not a beginning and an end. And I think it's really the way that the climate has changed in terms of, it's impossible. When I was first making films, I was posting fully explicit content of those films on Tumblr, on Twitter. Tumblr was really genuinely how I got my start. And I genuinely don't think that Four Chambers would be able to be in the position that we're in now if we hadn't been able to grow that initial fan base in that way and share work that was explicit and share work that was unfiltered. And it just feels like for somebody coming up now, it's just such a huge uphill struggle. And I think people are diversifying in different ways. I feel like there's a lot of, a lot more latex than I ever remember seeing, but that's because it's a way to be naked but clothed. So, you can show things, but you
are still covered. The algorithm doesn't quite understand that.
No, it's not quite got to the point where it's like, oh, that's just a fashion naked or is it? Person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been a journey from dial-up modems to chat rooms with your friends. Baba.
You see, you're natural.
To vampirefreaks.com to these events and Tumblr and was it camming?
Yeah.
And let me think of having a story from beginning to end begin.
I think I was at university and I was making physical artwork and I was spending a lot of time on Tumblr and I was seeing a lot of porn. And porn was kind of curated on Tumblr in a way that I never saw it curated before. It became a visual aesthetic part of the way you were presenting yourself. It was on your blog next to your personal posts, next to your pictures of like cute outfits and selfies. And it became, people were curating their desires in a way that felt like it was very much a part of their personality. But I wasn't necessarily seeing a lot of porn that felt like it was really expanded past the kind of traditional, like the idea in our heads that we have when we think about kind of classic porn. I didn't see a lot of people kind of pushing the envelope. And I loved music videos. I always think music videos are some of the most kind of like instantly captivating, powerful, like work on video. And I was just interested if I could kind of take some of the aesthetic or conceptual qualities that I was doing in my artwork and smush it together with pornography. And I honestly just like, we were fucking around. We were really just experimenting. And just the response we got was really beyond anything that we were...
On Tumblr?
On Tumblr, yeah. It just kind of...
As Four Chambers already?
Not quite. I think maybe we made 2 or 3 videos that were just for fun. And then, with the confidence, the blind confidence of I think I was maybe 22, 23. I was like, I'm going to start a pornography studio. That's a thing that is normal to do on Tumblr.
Thank you, youth.
Thank you, youth. Thank you, hubris. And yeah, we just, I was camming at the time and I was using the money that I was making camming to, start to buy a slightly better camera and and it just snowballed from there. And there was a point where I was going to become an art teacher when I finished uni. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this porn thing a year and just see if there's, if it's interesting, if it's exciting. And it's 10 years later and I still never, and I've destroyed my potential chances of being a teacher.
We disseminate information in other ways now.
That's true. I consider myself a teacher.
Something like an elder. And then essay after essay, your life has changed. Is there anything that kind of comes to mind? It's a big question, but of all of these essays, these little studies that you've done to nourish yourself and feed the curious mind, you say that sexuality values have shifted over time. Is there anything that really stands out to you? Like for me, entering the sex industry, I think it's been 15 years now. I always had a little bit of an awareness of injustice and fairness because I grew up in places that had huge divides and it was very obvious. But I think the legislative undercurrents and the structural violence that was so heavily embedded in our lives, I think I only really understood that when I became a sex worker and was suddenly societally outcast, and people automatically had a dialogue about it, and I was suddenly part of that rejection and that hate, and I had to educate myself in order to navigate that. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest takeaways for me, that society just doesn't really have their shit together.
No.
And that fairness is not something that we're close enough to. And how can we get there? It's given me more of a structure and a place to understand life and to, I guess, almost inculcate a little bit of purpose around now, which is why I do the podcast and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably been a weird byproduct that I had no idea. And sure, of course, there's been a lot of wonderful ways that I've learned how to enjoy myself and enjoy people through the interactions that I've been afforded, and that, well, I say afforded, but it was a hustle and it's work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so I don't know. I guess it would be hard for me also to answer that question, but maybe those are the things that kind of come to mind when I think about my past and everything.
I definitely think that, for me, I don't think I had any idea really how close so many of us kind of dance on a tightrope between kind of societal shunning or legality, making porn, doing sex work. One of the things that you realize is that people's morals change. We're living in a time of increased puritanity, increased censorship. People are, afraid of sex, afraid of sexuality and sex workers. And in an unprecedented scale, there's this idea that, acceptance is just like, everything just moves the way you want it to in this like nice even graph. And honestly, really,
it's all over the shop.
It's all over the show. The kind of freedom that we were experiencing with the dawn of the internet, that can be taken away at any point. Borders. We were just having a conversation about how complicated it is now to move through borders because the ever present, the ever watchful eye of data will get you. It's impossible to be anonymous anymore. And honestly, I think more and more things that I value in my life are the ability to move through the world unwatched. I don't want to be perceived. I don't want to feel like, I think that a big part of the reason why people are more and more afraid of sex is because people are afraid of messing up on record.
Consequence.
I think social consequence. People don't, young people are not going out. They don't dance in clubs anymore. They don't take drugs at any, they don't experiment with experience anymore because the idea that someone's going to film you looking stupid, and that's going to follow you your whole life. I think that makes people feel like they have to be very closed off, and they have to keep this persona, this wall around them. And you know, I see it in like the young people that I know, and I feel so lucky that that wasn't my experience, because you know it gives us so much, but it you know, the way that it feels like it controls us now rather than us controlling it.
Using the medium.
Absolutely.
I mean, the medium was so fresh and unregulated
Absolutely.
in a lot of ways. So we really got an interesting time, like in the early 90s.
Both like very difficult and very interesting at the same time, just kind of almost like, you're right, completely unregulated.
Free for all in some ways. But I think, I mean, obviously it has developed technology exponential, but I think it's very interesting to think about the surveillance and us surveilling ourselves and how that's crafting a culture and limiting possibility and directing possibility, and how the choices that are made around that and the way that we're seeing ourselves. And yeah, I don't know if there's any particular answers, but I guess if we all could maybe just participate in thinking about that more, I think that's probably the best that we can get for now. And also understand that I think that it's really wrong that it's all these centralized nodes of control, like Meta, or like, you know, that a company is dictating how a generation is going to perceive itself. Terrifying. Is kind of, I mean, does anybody hear that sentence?
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know where one can go from there, but it's nice to have existed in both, in the world that we have now, in the world that was unregulated, and a world that didn't have an internet also.
And honestly, I love physical spaces where phone use is, you know, maybe doesn't have to be completely banned, but just discouraged. That actually having experiences that are not documented is so important and so freeing. And that's kind of, you know, when going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, where I was going, I want to have experiences, I want to have sexual experiences that are not for content, they are not for work, they are just for me, just for fun, just for my kind of, and I'm not going to record them, and I'm not going to show other people them, I'm not going to incentivize capitalizing off of them. I'm just going to try and feel them and experience them.
You need to go live in the void.
I think I need to go live in the void. It's true. I've been thinking this for a while. You got a hookup?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I saw you out.
I'm doing a Halloween party. I got hired, for a members club, and they're doing this. They're basically turning their space into hell. How original, but they don't care.
I mean, that sounds great.
That. I mean, yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Guess who's the devil?
Oh, I see this for you. So this like evil laugh.
It's actually, I'll give them the concept for that. Like when I first heard of it, I was like,
maybe.
But then they're going to put me in a small room, and people need to find it, and they'll have only some people will have the whatever to get in.
I love that.
And it's just going to be me having a conversation with them. Yeah, but like how I have conversations,
which is the voice,
which is only fit for podcasts.
Yeah,
formats where I get to grill people.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, but yeah. So how is the reality sitting for you? Like, do you have plans for how you're going to stop feeling perceived?
I just think I kind of think it's going to be a balance that we're all going to have to play with, really probably for the rest of our lives. Like, I don't think any of this stuff is going to go away anytime soon. And it's about just trying to find a way that feels like that it makes sense, I think. And honestly, the more I've given myself permission to kind of have a few years of, you know, not pushing myself to shoot if I don't want to shoot, not beating myself up about productivity as much, and trying to really kind of reap some of what has been sown. And I do feel better, actually. Like I think in recent years, there's been like lots of things that have happened that have kind of made me confront the idea that, life is about experience, not just about producing things. And I think I feel like I'm in a better place, and I'm excited to work again, which is nice. I'm really enjoying thinking about films, and I have an idea for a film that I want to make. I've been talking a lot recently about the idea of the self and the reflected self. And have you seen The Substance?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. Everybody's telling me to see it.
Well, then I will not talk about it.
No, you can talk about it.
No, because it's one of those things that I think it is also good to go in.
Well, I will experience.
It deals with this idea of like the doppelganger self.
Okay.
And really, I think anybody that's worked online in any capacity has that sense of like splitting.
Or anybody these days.
Yes.
I've been reading Naomi Klein, Doppelgänger.
I loved that book.
Yeah, and I've been recommending it to all the doms.
It's so good.
Like, look, this is what we have to deal with.
It's us. Yes, it's true. But it's amazing because you're right. It like permeates almost every aspect of society, and this idea of the conversation with the shadow self. Yes.
People start to invest in the flat surface and believe that they are the flat surface, and that's not good for them.
And I think everybody gets to the stage where they touch on that a bit, and you have to really take a huge step back. Because that you're right, it fucks people up. And like I feel everybody's felt that sense. But yeah, her idea of the shadow self and like confronting the shadow self, and like she just does an incredible job of just tying all of these incredibly disparate things together, and it just makes you realize how like interconnected everything is, and how these dynamics play out throughout everything. I think you're right. I don't think it's just sex work. I see other people doing it all the time. I even think just as women, like we're kind of conditioned into palatability from a young age. And it's really hard to break with that. It's just so hard to feel like you have the freedom to be able to let go and exist. Yeah.
I think it's nice that meditation has become a little bit more of like a hip thing to try, and that it's become apps and whatever. And I think giving people a bit more space is good. But maybe we also need to start to think about how to make like experiences without devices a part of our lives also. Like I've been dating younger people. Maybe this is a great segue to the mommy thing, but I've been dating younger people, and the way that they're attached to their phones is like, I don't even know how to really navigate it. I'm like, presence here.
Yes, absolutely.
And like around key times, also like when you're waking up and you're going to sleep, like, it's like you really want to make your brain go into that kind of hyper state straight away or before you're sleeping. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Just like injecting yourself with all this information.
Don't control me. Like, okay.
Well, it's interesting because for me, like I find the phone, it's almost like it's when like I'm so drawn to it because it's just so easy. And I think it becomes like a dummy. It's like self-soothing for me where, if I'm stressed, if I'm doing something that's hard and it's requiring my brain to actually engage, my first thought is, I'll just pick up my phone. And I almost think there is that kind of sense of just going, lovely, easy, scroll, information, no thinking.
Vex looks hot.
Yeah, exactly. Just lovely hot people, perfect hot people that don't have complicated lives. But like it's something that like challenges me a lot. And the thing that I do now is that I get up and I leave my phone plugged in next to my bed, and I will use my laptop and I can, text people. And if I want to look on Instagram, I have to look at it on the horrible Instagram web app, but it just de-incentivizes sitting there scrolling and kind of being embodied. Because I find myself, I don't know if you have this, but I go, I have to, it's for work. I have to do it. It's for work. And the reality is I don't have to do it.
I'm like, no.
It's for work.
No.
Yeah. So it's actually been really good to kind of just try and leave it at the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, young people younger than me, I'm like, it's even worse.
Yeah. I don't sleep with the phone in the room.
Well, you have a much better sense of self-control.
I mean, it's like a forced thing also.
Yeah.
It just works better. Then I put my alarm on crazy loud and
okay, good.
Just so
you have to leave the bedroom to come turn your
That's
alarm
also
off.
another good thing. But segue to the young person.
Oh yeah, so you've been dating young people. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, because like I'm basically 40, and everybody my age is like with child.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I was always like, I've never really dated someone younger than me, and the older I'm getting, the more I'm like,
this is gonna happen.
It's just I think you have to wait for the first round of divorces to kick in before everyone comes back again. Yeah. I'm feeling like 50 is going to be like key. Everyone's been through that, like making happy families, and everyone's going to want to be weird again.
Yeah. I guess because so many of my clients are sort of in that age range, I'm not really thinking about dating it. I have a surplus of that age range and their concerns, and it's great, but it's like enough.
Yeah.
And so we try new things. But the other day, I had a little experience that reminded me of your work, Maman, which I adore. But the experience was, yes, I've been dating younger people, and it's not something that's necessarily vocalized a lot, like the age difference. Sometimes they might say, I love an age difference, like maybe 2 out of 100 or something. Right. But like during sex, like he was on the cusp of coming, and he said, Mama.
So hot.
But he immediately went back in, like it was something he didn't want to say. And I didn't hear from him again for like 3 months.
You're like, come on.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear it this time because you looked uncomfortable. I'm going to bring that shit out.
Let's see if we can get to that.
Yeah. And then he crawled back 3 months after, but by that time had passed. But
I think it's such a vulnerable thing for people because it really challenges you. And honestly, like that state, that kind of, playing with that like baby state is some of the, like, it's the most vulnerable you can be. And sometimes I think people have to come to it in their own time.
How did you get familiar with the space?
I think that I love the idea of domination, but for me personally, I think the thing that I liked about it was this idea of kind of like gentle manipulation.
It's already familiar. Something familiar already.
Yeah, there's something almost. I'm not necessarily like a whips and chains person. I love like the psychology of something, and I think there's something incredibly erotic about playing in the taboo of that, but also just erotic in kind of, I think, especially with people who, like for me, I don't really care if someone's already pathetic. They're not that interesting to me. I want somebody who
want to make somebody pathetic.
Exactly. I'm like, it's going to be, all right, you are going to become pathetic in my arms. And I think that there's so much in that dynamic is, I love exploring how kind of archetypes inform our sexual appetite. And I think just, we saw so much daddy discourse, a couple of years ago when everyone was like, oh, so-and-so is daddy, call your boyfriend daddy. But it was interesting because there was just nothing about mommy stuff. Because I think it's a deeper hole, it's a bigger void for people. And it's a lot more kind of really like my friend Valerie, who we made the film with, she said, she was like, I think for people, there's almost this kind of societal expectation of like daddy issues, but really like mommy issues are so much more pointed and vulnerable because the idea of the mother in society is goodness, is, she unconditional love, and to either not receive that or to desire that in a different way is
and be denied it
is truly,
or the very subtle manipulations
the very subtle manipulations
quite inherent to the dynamic and kind of necessary.
100%.
Somebody needs to guide you.
A firm hand. And it was just me and Valerie were having conversations talking about how it was so hot and talking about, the ways in which we didn't really feel like we were seeing the way that we found it erotic represented necessarily. There was a lot of like very strict, mean mommy. But for us, we were like, it's kind of almost about breaking somebody down through care and almost turning them to kind of putty in your hands by just smothering them, kind of enveloping them and allowing them to like return to this almost like
blubbery state.
And a kind of a childlike kind of we talk about in the film as you're reduced to just want and need. It's just like you're encouraged, your desire to need. It's like when you're mummy, you can fulfill any need. Your giving is limitless, and the person that you're giving that to, is just this like open mouth. And I think that's also how the like breast milk comes into it, because it becomes this like sense of kind of deep connection of almost like being able to like nourish somebody with something that you've made in your body.
You're continuing to give it life.
This is true. I mean, not anymore, sadly. It's.
Did you stop the biohacking?
We did. We both did. Unfortunately,
no,
it's really sad. But we are. I think both of us are like we are going to start again.
I'm pretty sure Valerie hung on to it for longer than the film.
She did an incredible job, frankly, and I'm sure she would again.
So, for those who are not aware of the film, Vex did 2 films to do with Maman, and Valerie and Vex did a little bit of induction of the breast milk.
A little bit of that was kind of what started the journey off, was that we, it was lockdown and the two of us were having these conversations about how hot this would be, and we spent a lot of time on the adult breastfeeding Reddit, as you do when you're bored and you're in a pandemic, and we realized that
it's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult, and anyone can do it regardless of gender, with the right kind of combination of hormones and stimulation.
Okay.
Any nipple, well, maybe not completely any, but most people can induce lactation even if you're not pregnant.
Is it an epilepsy drug?
It's not actually. It's actually a drug that they use to prescribe for like stomach, like having essentially like an upset stomach. Okay. But it's just in this country, it's not. They use it in other countries to induce lactation, but for some reason in the UK and I think in the US, it's not like FDA regulated. But there are ways.
How long does it take to work?
It worked so quickly, or at least for both of us. We were both, and honestly, the first time it happened to me, I honestly think breast milk is so hot. I love liquids. I love mess. I love bodily fluids. I just think that's like some of the most kind of erotic parts of sex. But honestly, when it happened to me, it was so terrifying and almost kind of Cronenbergian body horror. Okay. Because I didn't realize it was happening. I was masturbating and I was squeezing my nipple and I just went, what? Yeah. And then immediately was just like, okay, right, we need to investigate this. Yeah. And it was, I think, within a couple of weeks.
Oh, whoa.
To be fair, we had been doing like other kind of stimulation stuff, like you can use a breast
really
pump.
Gives.
Oh, it does. But again,
you use a breast pump before.
You can use a breast, so just basically, there was a story on Reddit about a gay couple where this guy loved to have his nipples played, and him and his boyfriend would just sit in front of the TV and his boyfriend would just be like rubbing his nipples, and he started inducing milk from that, just the stimulation, the connection between your body and your mind. Okay. Your brain goes, oh, I guess we need milk there now.
Oh, so this is how people can lactate for very long periods of time.
Absolutely. Then. And that's why even after you give birth, you can breastfeed for a long time, because as long as that sensation is still there, it's still sending a signal to your brain to be like, we need more milk.
Are there benefits to lactating?
Good party trick. Dinner party conversation.
I'd love to drop that in the group kink WhatsApp.
Yes.
You know, it's like, what are my do's and don'ts?
Yeah. But honestly, yeah, for me, the thing that I found like very erotic about it was that I actually love the week before my period where my boobs swell, because they're kind of heavier and they're more sensitive, and they just sort of you're more aware of them. And it kind of gave you that feeling all the time, which felt good. And honestly, there was just something very, for both of us, I think, or for me specifically, there was something very, it felt very powerful to play in the space of the mother, which society kind of considers to be this perfect, godly person, and to be like, we're going to fuck with it. We're going to do something dirty with it. And we're going to kind of, as sex workers, I think so often we are excluded from those spaces. The idea of you becoming a mother is almost, shocking or scandalous.
Meanwhile,
but
we have to do it so much.
Exactly. Well, both metaphorically and, so many sex workers are mothers.
Psychologically, anyway. Yes. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Just thinking of all the clients.
But we have this idea that like the Madonna whore complex. And there was something really powerful about being like, I'm going to be the Madonna and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And it's going to be hot. And really it's a film, one of the films that I've made that's felt like most personal and most kind of in keeping with my own turn-ons or like my own sense of my sexuality. Okay. And it was, it was such an epic project. It took us so long and it's really one of my favorite pieces of work that I've made because it just felt so, it really felt like we got to get into the mess of it and really like dig around, and we found so much stuff we didn't expect.
And I mean, you involved your bodies for a long time.
Yeah, it was intense because you had to pump quite a lot and you had to remember to take the pills, and the pills were not just one a day. It's like, 2 pills 4 times a day sometimes. Yeah. But there was something about the ritual of it that was also erotic.
Yeah. And it connects you when you create ritual, when you put that much work into anything also. Right?
I'm sure there's many people that I know my friends who are mothers and have like done sex work like through their pregnancy and then like out the other side. There's a big market for it.
Yes,
people are very into it.
Bodybuilders.
Really?
No.
They want to buy the breast milk. Yes, I saw that.
Everybody, like, it's a thing. It's a part.
But it's interesting because, I feel like previously it wasn't a very trendy fetish for a while. I feel like both like mommy and that stuff, I feel like it's had a bit of a swell of popularity in recent years.
What are some trendy fetishes?
Oh, well, I can actually do this. So daddy, like always? Daddy little girl was huge for a little bit, and then pissing on people. Everyone was fucking pissing on everyone. Okay. That was a big thing. Latex now very much. And I obviously stepmom, mommy stuff, very big. And I kind of think that like, cucking, like cuckolding, adjacent stuff. I think
that's never had enough of a space, in my opinion.
I agree. And you know what? We're doing the work. And that's what's important.
Thank you.
But like, cuck has become this cultural phenomenon. Like people are using it as an insult all the time. And for me, honestly, part of the reason why I wanted to make this film is that I actually think cuckolding is deeply romantic. It's, I love Leonard Cohen.
It takes a lot of thought.
It does. It's cerebral.
And like even management. Because sure, there's multiple parties, but then it's the emotion of the multiple parties. So there's just so much to navigate. It's not a light task.
No.
Yeah.
I think anything that plays in the psyche is this intense, emotional sex.
So it's not a throwaway kink to get involved with, for sure.
What do you think's trendy at the moment?
I don't know. I've never been
What are you
very
getting
good
asked
at
for a lot?
I'm at the point in my career where I kind of almost do what I want.
I mean, that
I'm like a bit
sounds
lazy.
good.
And like, these are the requests. I'm like, this is what I feel like.
That's good.
Yeah, I think the marketing for me has kind of moved it to a point where they are obsessed with the concept of me, and so I get a lot more freedom in terms of what we get up to in session.
That's nice.
So, but that makes me a terrible market researcher, I think. But online, I don't know. I mean, it's the highly sexualized femdom stuff. You know, I think that. There was more of a space for the clothed female naked male sort of genre. But now I think that a lot of us are doing a lot raunchier, controlling, like chat, but it's blurred. Yeah. It's really blurred.
Yeah, there's definitely, I can 100% see that. Almost like traditional demarcations have started to become a bit more in flux.
Yeah. Which I'm happy for. I'm pretty happy to get naked.
Yeah, fuck it. I think being powerful naked is, so erotic. Like, because if you can command a room completely naked, there's something in that.
Well, it's a tool for me. I don't see it as necessarily a vulnerability. I see it as this is really going to fuck with you. So
let's go. Yeah.
I was actually thinking about maybe in 5 years' time. I like how everybody's thinking, oh, so when do you get out of the industry, or do you have to retire? And I'm like, in 5 years' time, I think I was thinking going pretty mainstream. I was thinking of hitting the MILF market hard.
I can see that for you. Yeah, it'll be so good. You're going full like Brazzers, mom stuck in the washing machine.
Yeah, but I think I would need to mom stuck in the washing machine, and then you get pushed in the washing machine on the slow cycle, so I can watch your eyes.
Okay, so maybe not super normal. I like that you're like, that's
but it might change in 5 years. Power might become, shifting.
I mean, I think that too. I do think there's like, I think more and more, what's interesting for me is that all the women that I speak to about their tastes in porn, they have the most varied, fucked up, incredible kind of taste. And all the men I speak to are like, I just like a woman having a nice time.
True. Are they lying?
I mean, I guess they are saying that to me. I'm just like, sorry then, who's watching all of this fucked up stuff then?
We are.
Damn it.
I'm like insects archives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I'm just like, I think people underestimate the depravity of a woman's mind.
Yeah, I guess when you have to keep things under lock and key, it has more room to explore the void, perhaps. It kind of has the opposite effect to what they've been trying to do. But thank you. We've gone in a lot of different areas. I found out about your chat room, Baba, which is a very cute image for me.
I'll show you afterwards.
Yeah, and I really want to watch the cuck thing now. And I mean, your work has completely revolutionized landscape of porn, and thank you. Yeah, and I can't wait to see you do whatever the fuck you want to do from here. But I think we should take a holiday with no phones.
No phone holiday.
Yeah, or at least an evening or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would actually love to do that. I'd love to organize a group holiday that was just no phones.
No documentation. Yeah, I wonder who's going to go crazy first.
Yeah, it's true. It's like Lord of the Flies out here.
What are we going to start doing to each other?
That sounds also good. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, I guess maybe analog can be allowed.
I honestly love to be photographed on film. That's one of the few, if I'm having my photo taken now, if someone's shooting on film, I love it because there's the separation of going, you can't instantly review yourself. You have to wait for that to be developed. And you come to it with like fresh eyes and you see yourself not as you are now, but as you were like 2 weeks ago. And I think for me, there should be a cooling off period between having a photo taken and having to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what all of the extra settings can be on a phone, right? And I recently also saw a device that is audio only.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I guess we will be moving towards different structures and hopefully less homogenized ways of being.
Yeah, absolutely.
As technology also evolves. Maybe this is just a period in time where it's like one-dimensional because the technology is not there yet. Who knows? Me, MILF, 5 years. That's all I know.
I'm excited.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything that you'd like to mention as we close?
I would, just like to say, like, thank you to you and thank you for like always helping to create kind of interesting, like expansive spaces for conversations like this. But yeah, check out the Cuck film and the Mommy film, and
sign up to the site, pay for your porn, let it change your life as it has changed ours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for watching. See you next time.